The fluorescent lights buzz softly as Naomi sits on the crinkled paper of the exam table, hands folded, posture tight. Across from her, Nurse Keller taps the screen of her tablet with the bored precision of someone already checked out. "Still with the headaches?" she asks flatly. Naomi nods, her voice barely audible. And chest tightness now, dizziness too. Keller doesn't look up. Stress, anxiety, could be lack of sleep. She shrugs, then turns her back. Naomi glances down. Her phone, barely visible, is tucked into her hoodie pocket. The red recording light still blinking. "I've been tracking everything," Naomi murmurs, not loud enough to register. Keller sighs. "Look, sweetheart, you need to stop Googling symptoms. It's not helping." Naomi doesn't argue. She just sits, still, silent, recording. The nurse walks out without another word. Naomi finally exhales, not defeated, but ready. This time, she's not walking away empty-handed. Naomi didn't start by recording anything. In the beginning, she did what everyone is told to do: trust the professionals. When the migraines first came, she assumed it was the stress of switching jobs. When the fatigue hit, she blamed herself for not getting enough sleep. But after 3 weeks of dragging herself through each day, with waves of nausea and a pulsing ache behind her eyes, Naomi finally booked an appointment at Valley Ridge Medical. Nurse Keller was the first to see her. She skimmed Naomi's intake form, barely looking up, and said, "Young people like you don't usually have these problems." It wasn't said with concern. It was dismissal disguised as reassurance. Naomi tried to explain the timing, the symptoms, the triggers. "Maybe it's just hormones," Keller had shrugged. That was visit 1. The second time, Naomi came back with a handwritten symptom tracker. She had circled dates, highlighted trends. Keller glanced at it and waved it off. "These things come and go. You just have to ride them out." The third visit, Naomi tried again, but this time, she noticed something chilling. Keller wasn't adding much to her chart. No notes, no logging of her new symptoms. Naomi asked, "Can you please add that I felt shortness of breath last night?" Keller said, "If it was important, you'd be in the ER." That night, Naomi cried in her car for nearly 20 minutes. It wasn't just the pain. It was being made to feel invisible inside of it. And that's when she made a decision. If no one was going to believe her story, she was going to build her own record, not just of her body, but of their negligence. Naomi downloaded a voice recorder app, set up auto-record on call-ins and appointments, and created a folder in her phone labeled Health Notes. She started small, 2-minute clips after each visit, summarizing symptoms, reactions, changes. Then she got bolder. During her 4th visit, when Keller rolled her eyes and said, "You're too young to be this dramatic," Naomi's phone was already tucked inside the side pocket of her canvas tote. The audio picked up every word. Later that night, Naomi listened back. Her voice sounded timid. Keller's tone sounded condescending. It made her stomach turn. Still, Naomi didn't act on it. Not yet. But as her symptoms worsened, and her concerns were continually brushed aside, she kept recording. Over time, it stopped being just about her symptoms. It became about how often they called her hysterical, how many times they attributed her issues to stress, and how little effort anyone made to actually examine her. One clip even caught Keller saying, "This generation just wants attention." Naomi saved that one with a red tag. A week later, Naomi fainted while walking up the stairs to her apartment. She woke up on the floor, alone, cold, and terrified. That night, she organized every single file. Something was coming, and this time, she wasn't going to be gaslit into silence. It was supposed to be a routine follow-up. Naomi had spent the night before organizing her folders, labeling each clip by date and category. She was exhausted, not just from the symptoms, but from carrying the emotional weight of constantly not being believed. That morning, she almost didn't go. Her head was throbbing, and her stomach felt like it was being tied in knots. But something told her to show up anyway. She sat quietly in the cold waiting room, phone recording again, as the wall clock ticked 15 minutes past her appointment. When Nurse Keller finally appeared, she didn't apologize. She just said, "Come on, let's make this quick. I'm already behind." Naomi bit her tongue. Inside the exam room, she handed over a printed symptom timeline. Keller didn't even glance at it. "We've already talked about this," she muttered, tapping at the keyboard like Naomi was wasting her time. Naomi said carefully, "Actually, I think it's getting worse." Keller snapped. "Or maybe you just think it is." That sentence echoed in Naomi's ears longer than it should have. She tried to steady her breath, but something in her cracked. "I've been tracking everything," Naomi said, her voice shaking. "I've recorded." But Keller cut her off. "Recorded what?" "Yourself panicking." She laughed, and turned away. Naomi's chest burned with humiliation. She looked down at her lap, the red light on her phone blinking softly. She thought, "What am I doing? All this effort, all this pain, and for what? To be told again and again that it's in her head?" She left the clinic without saying another word. Outside, the sunlight fell harsh. Too real, too bright. She got in her car and sat in the silence, eyes locked on the steering wheel. There was a half-second, maybe less, where she considered deleting everything, just erasing the files, pretending this never happened, going back to pretending she was the problem, that maybe she was overreacting. But then she remembered the clip from 2 weeks ago, the one where Keller had said, "You people always think you're sick." That one phrase, "you people," stuck like a thorn. Naomi wasn't imagining this. This wasn't overreaction. This was erasure. Systemic. Casual. Cruel. And she had proof. All of it. Not just one clip. A pattern. A record. A case. She stared at her phone. Tapped the screen. Replayed the moment Keller laughed. Something inside her switched. She wasn't just a patient anymore. She was a witness. And she wasn't backing down. The next time Naomi stepped into that clinic, she wasn't just a patient. She was a woman on a mission. She had spent the past week compiling everything. Clips from her appointments, transcriptions, symptom trackers, timestamps, even screenshots from the online portal, showing delayed responses and contradictory notes. She dressed simple, hoodie, jeans, a neutral expression, but everything about her was different. Not angry, not loud, just prepared. She walked past the front desk, her heart pounding beneath her ribcage like a warning bell. The receptionist asked if she had an appointment. "No," Naomi replied calmly, "but I do have documentation. I'd like to speak to the practice manager." They told her to wait. She did, not nervously this time, but with quiet control. When the manager finally appeared, a graying man named Mr. Halvorson. He looked confused, even mildly annoyed. "Can I help you?" he asked, clipboard in hand. Naomi handed him a yellow envelope. "These are the recordings from my last 6 appointments," she said. "Every time I was dismissed, gaslit, or insulted by Nurse Keller." Halvorson blinked. "Recordings?" "Yes," she said flatly. "Legal in this state, by the way." She saw his mouth tighten. She knew that look. The one people gave when they realized something serious was unfolding, but still hoped to contain it. He opened the envelope and skimmed the summary transcript on top. "You documented all of this?" he asked. Naomi didn't answer. She let the silence do the work. Halvorson flipped through the packet. Dates, quotes, audio file logs. His eyes darted to the door behind him. "Let me speak with someone," he muttered and disappeared. Naomi waited. 10 minutes passed. 15. She considered walking out, but stayed rooted. She knew what was happening. They were scrambling, not to apologize, not yet, but to protect themselves. When he returned, Nurse Keller was with him. She looked pale, tight-lipped, not nearly as smug as before. Naomi didn't rise. Keller didn't speak. Halvorson cleared his throat. "We'd like to resolve this matter internally," he said carefully. "There's no need to involve legal channels if we can address your concerns directly." Naomi almost laughed. Now they were ready to listen. She reached into her bag and pulled out a copy of her formal complaint, already filed with the state medical board. "I'm not here for hush money," she said. "I'm here for accountability." Keller's mouth opened, then closed. Naomi stood. Her hands didn't shake. "And just so you're both aware," she added, "this packet, that's the short version." She turned to leave. No drama. No yelling. Just that one final look she gave Keller. The kind that says, "You thought I was nothing. You thought I wouldn't fight back." She walked out the same way she came in. But the balance of power had shifted, not because she shouted, not because she begged, but because she documented. And when someone documents, the truth doesn't just whisper. It echoes, loud enough to reach rooms that never bothered to listen before. 2 days later, Naomi wasn't thinking about the clinic. She was in her kitchen, sipping lukewarm tea, half watching the news on mute, when her phone lit up. The subject line made her sit upright. Urgent follow-up. Complaint case number 42298. Investigation initiated. It was from the State Board of Nursing. She tapped it open, with a steadier hand than she expected. The email confirmed that her documentation had triggered a preliminary investigation into both Nurse Keller's conduct and the clinic's patient complaint handling protocol. Her evidence hadn't just been seen. It had been taken seriously, and suddenly the balance shifted further. Later that afternoon, a second email followed. This one was from a woman named Dr. Marlene Graves, a senior administrator from the Regional Health Oversight Committee. I'd appreciate the opportunity to speak with you directly, it read. Your submission was thorough. Naomi scheduled the call for the next morning. That night, she barely slept, not out of anxiety, but from sheer adrenaline, the kind that comes from watching a gaslit truth begin to glow through the fog. The call lasted 43 minutes. Dr. Graves listened intently. She didn't interrupt, didn't question Naomi's recollection. She asked instead for clarity, context, patterns. Naomi laid it all out, not just Keller's words, but the structure that enabled them. How routine her dismissal had become. How many other patients probably left confused, invalidated, maybe worse. You're not the first to file, Dr. Graves admitted, but you're the first to prove it. That sentence hit like a bell. Not the first, but the first with evidence. A week passed. Then came the chain reaction. Naomi received a formal letter. Nurse Keller was being placed on administrative leave, pending a full investigation. But more than that, the clinic itself was now under compliance review. Staff were being interviewed. Procedures were being audited. Word started to ripple outward. A local health blog picked up the story, anonymized, but clear in implication. A patient's hidden phone recordings spark probe into systemic medical gaslighting. Naomi's inbox swelled, not with spam, but with messages from other patients. Strangers, people who had been to the same clinic, people who had left feeling the same way, dismissed, patronized, unheard. One message read, I thought it was just me. Thank you for speaking up. Another, I never had the strength. You gave it to me. Naomi didn't cry. Not then. But something inside her shifted. It wasn't just about her anymore. Meanwhile, the clinic scrambled. An emergency all-staff meeting was held. Internal memos flew. A new protocol was distributed to all nurses. Mandatory empathy training, revised patient feedback systems, strict disciplinary thresholds. Keller hadn't been fired. Not yet. But she wasn't invisible anymore. And her behavior could no longer hide behind the veil of institutional silence. Naomi didn't show up to rub it in. She didn't need to. Her presence was in the system now, in the audit trail, in every email, every memo. She didn't yell. She documented. She didn't rage. She recorded. And now the system, slow, reluctant, but real, was finally catching up. A month later, Naomi found herself standing in the same sterile hallway where it all started. But she wasn't a patient this time. She was invited witness. The regional board had organized a formal ethics review at the clinic, and Dr. Graves had personally requested Naomi's presence for the internal debrief. Your voice matters more than you think, she'd said over the phone. Naomi arrived early, not to intimidate, but to represent the truth. Neutral tones, hair pulled back, a folder under her arm containing the timeline, transcripts, and her now viral Reddit post that had anonymously outlined her story. The clinic felt different now. Not better, just exposed. The receptionist didn't make eye contact. The nurse who used to scoff at her looked away. Naomi was escorted to a glass conference room where 2 compliance officers, a hospital rep, and a visibly tense Nurse Keller were already seated. Keller's posture was stiff, her hands too carefully clasped, eyes darting. like she couldn't figure out why Naomi was here. Dr. Graves entered last, tablet in hand. She nodded. Let's begin. For the first few minutes, it was formal procedure. Statements read, violations noted. Then Graves tapped her screen. Let's review Exhibit C, she said, and suddenly, the audio played. Naomi's voice, Keller's voice. That moment, it's all in your head. The room fell silent. Thick, heavy, unmistakable. Keller's expression crumpled. She went from composed to cornered. That's taken out of context, she said quickly. One compliance officer shook his head. There's full context, 6 sessions worth. Naomi didn't move, didn't gloat. She sat still, hands on her folder, letting the truth speak for her. Then came the shift. Dr. Graves turned to Naomi. Would you be willing to describe the emotional impact of these experiences and why you chose to document them? All eyes turned to her. Naomi didn't flinch. She spoke clearly, steadily. She described the doubt, the gaslighting, the slow erosion of trust in her own body. I didn't record because I was angry, she said. I recorded because I had to survive. She paused. I didn't come here to destroy anyone's career. I came so no one else would leave this clinic, feeling like they imagined their pain. That landed like a stone in still water. Keller looked stunned, not by anger, but by the reflection of what her choices had cost. A compliance officer leaned into the mic. Recommendation for immediate removal from patient-facing duties, pending full disciplinary review. The hospital rep nodded. No one objected. Keller stood up, wordless, shoes silent on the vinyl floor. She walked out, and this time, Naomi didn't follow. She stayed seated, quiet, grounded. No applause, no final speech, just one long exhale. Her evidence had spoken. Her presence had confirmed it. She didn't torch the place. She rewired it, one receipt at a time. 3 months later, the waiting room at Glenridge Family Clinic looked the same. Buzzing fluorescents, stacked pamphlets, the quiet shuffle of clipboards. But something had changed. The air carried a new weight. Not fear, awareness. Taped to the front desk was a laminated card that read, "You have the right to be heard. If you feel dismissed, request a second opinion. No penalty." Below it, a QR code, linking straight to the feedback portal. A feature added, because of Naomi. Inside the staff lounge, a thick red-labeled binder sat on the table. Patient Validation and Accountability Initiative. New training videos played. Updated policies. Reenactments based on real events, including transcripts from Naomi's case. One video even used Naomi's voice. Her calm narration layered over the footage. When someone tells you their pain, you're not there to debate it. You are there to listen. This time, the nurses took notes. No one scrolled. No one laughed. And Naomi? She didn't work there, but everyone knew who she was. Quietly, respectfully, patients whispered about her. The one who recorded everything. Some said she gave them courage to ask for second opinions. One woman, mid-40s, whispered, "Thank you," to Naomi. In the parking lot, Naomi smiled, didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her voice had already done its job. She'd returned to her life, this time with a new medical team, who listened, who documented, who treated her like a person, not a problem. Her symptoms didn't vanish overnight, but the self-doubt did. No more bracing for dismissal. No more rehearsing her pain, like a performance. Because now, there was a trail, a change, a system with her fingerprint on it. One day, Dr. Graves reached out again, not with a request, with an offer. "If you ever want to consult on reform, we could use your insight." Naomi thanked her, but declined. She didn't want to build a career out of pain. She just wanted her peace. And she had it. At home, the folder still sat on the shelf, untouched, unneeded. The phone she used to record everything, now used for grocery lists, music, the occasional cat selfie. The past was still there, but no longer haunting. Now it was proof. One afternoon, her younger cousin stopped by. Midway through chatting, she pointed at Naomi's phone case. "That's the one, right? From a story?" Naomi glanced down, smiled. "Yeah, funny how something so small made the world listen." The cousin grinned. "Ever think about going public with your name?" Naomi paused. No, she said, because the story's not about me. It's about everyone who's ever been told their pain isn't real. I just made sure they had proof. And that's what stuck. She didn't want fame. She wanted truth. And now, she'd built it. Quietly. Permanently. Not with rage. Not with revenge. But with the simple power of documentation. Of being heard. Of not walking away. No spotlight. No stage. Just the undeniable sound of a system. Finally. Listening.